every vote literally counts in these things. So, like I don't buy that argument either of, oh, my vote's one of many. Some races go down to 33
Now,
votes.
certainly, just so I know, is there like a limit in terms of, because that particular riding was won by 33, is there like an automatic recount, or what's the threshold to say, okay, it's too close to call, we got to do a
Sure.
recount? So how is it here in Ajax or you?
Specifically in Ajax, back in 2014, we first introduced online voting. So you could vote online or you could vote in person. In the 2018 election, it was strictly voting online. And same as this past election in 2022. Because of that, though, there's really no need for a recount. You've clicked your candidate, you hit submit. That is the vote. There's no skewed ballots, hanging chads, or anything like. There's nothing like that. There's really no need for a recount.
Yeah, and vote harvesting or something, all that drama in the US that seems to be like people manning, polling stations, all that sort of stuff. So, I know that, I know for Ajax, they've done it. And, for all the people who aren't at Ajax, push your governments to try to see to embed it, because it was so easy. Like, to be honest, it literally took me maybe 30 seconds to vote. Aside from validating, my identity and stuff like that, I'm basically just clicking on the different candidates who I like, click submit. I think they asked me one confirmation question to make sure that I have the right number, that I voted for anything, or if I forgot to vote for someone, it'll let me know that I'm missing a category. But that was it, right? And even in the polling station, now that might take some jobs away from some people who used to work the polling stations from Elections Canada, where you would come into like provincial, federal elections, where you have the people making some part-time cash that way. So I don't know if we want to fully do that, but what did you think about the turnout, though, of the Ajax election? Did we get a lot of turnouts and stuff?
No. So I think we were at 22% turnout,
Ooh.
which is abysmal. Yeah. Now, there's other municipalities in Durham specifically that had even lower than that.
Even so.
So it's like, I think to a degree, like to your listeners, predominantly in Ontario, we did a federal election 13 months ago, a provincial election 6 months ago, and then there's the municipal election. I think to a degree, like the population was kind of electioned out, so to speak, right? I know I was, and especially, you mentioned earlier, this isn't a political podcast, but it seems today, and this is not one side or the other, that people are angry, or COVID really negatively impacted a lot of people, and people haven't even begun to address the frustrations that came with COVID, whether you're pro-lockdown, anti-lockdown, it doesn't matter. We all are all in the same boat. It was all an incredibly frustrating experience. But what that led to is people are becoming way more polarized than ever before, and we're seeing it. And it's leading the middle, so not the radicalized left or right, but just the middle, to just be exhausted with politics in general. And I get it too. I'm in it, and I'm somewhat exhausted by it. So I'm not sure what the answer is. I think collectively we should try to deal with the trauma that was COVID. Whether you see a psychiatrist, psychologist, doesn't matter. We keep saying mental health is such an important thing, and all these companies do big mental health campaigns. But it's like as a public, we haven't truly embraced the idea that maybe we're not all okay, and maybe we need to find more productive ways of addressing this inner frustration and anger, rather than going on Twitter and just flaming politicians, or just yelling at your neighbors or yelling at your politicians. Like, that's not productive. And it doesn't even get I would argue it gets you more angry, which is kind of a sad state.
Well, yeah. And I think I totally agree with that one, because I think, like you said, on either side, they're both shutting down each other. And the people who could really, we're stuck in the middle. Like, I think Canada's almost very much down the middle. We're usually very neutral when it comes to a lot of issues. Right. But I find that it's harder because you're hearing both, and you could be influenced one way or the other. But the thing, what I guess annoys me, is that everyone is drowning out actual conversations anymore. It's more like you have to agree with everything on one side, and you're not allowed to disagree with them, because if you disagree with one item on your quote unquote team, then you're like a traitor, and you're like, oh, you're on the other side of the fence, which I'm like, right. No, I mean, I always felt that, look, we might agree on, we might disagree on, let's say, gun control or environment. But if we agree with 95% of the other stuff, no one ever talks about where everyone agrees. Everyone really likes, and unfortunately the media too, like to focus in on the small parts that we don't agree on. And they just blow that just to get everyone angrier at each other, which it doesn't make any sense, because we have to live with each other.
Well, anger sells. that's what these companies have realized is like these, by posting these inflammatory headlines, one way or the other, you take an innocuous news story and make it into clicks and make it into, money. And that is kind of what these, especially social media companies, have realized. And even as the public, we realize that, but we still get sucked into it, right? I don't know what the answer is, Ken. Like it's a really toxic environment. And it's just like every election, I get so exhausted. And yeah, I signed up to it to a degree, but just the pure hatred and anger of people towards me who haven't even met me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you meet me and don't like me, I get it. I 100%, but it's just like, if you haven't even met me, but you have a very strong opinion about me, you got to think twice about it.